about slavery, the African slavery, and African participation. So, what I want you to do with me is let's watch a clip and we'll come back and have a small discussion.
Trade involved a complex network of actors. European powers, colonial settlers, and African leaders all played roles. It is crucial to understand the historical context of this era. It is essential to acknowledge that Africans were not a monolithic group. The continent was home to diverse cultures, languages, and political systems. While some African leaders and societies participated in the slave trade, others actively resisted it. The decision to engage in the trade was often driven by a combination of factors, including economic considerations, political alliances, and local conflicts. Some powerful African kingdoms, such as the Asante Empire in present-day Ghana and the Kingdom of Dahomey in present-day Benin, became major players in the slave trade. These kingdoms had sophisticated systems of governance and trade. They saw the slave trade as a means of acquiring wealth, expanding their territories, and consolidating their power. African merchants and intermediaries also played crucial roles in the trade, facilitating the capture and transportation of enslaved Africans. It is important to avoid simplistic explanations for African participation in the slave trade. Reducing complex historical events to notions of greed or cultural deficiency ignores the broader context of the time. African leaders who engaged in the trade often faced pressures and incentives that shaped their decisions. European demand for enslaved Africans created a lucrative market for those willing to supply captives. African leaders could obtain valuable goods in exchange for slaves, including firearms, textiles, and luxury items. In some cases, participation in the slave trade provided a way for African leaders to finance wars, suppress rivals, and maintain their grip on power. Economic and social benefits, a system of exchange. The transatlantic slave trade brought significant economic and social changes to Africa. While the trade enriched some African societies, it had devastating consequences for others. It is crucial to acknowledge both the benefits and the costs of this trade for African communities. The influx of European goods, particularly firearms, had a transformative impact on African warfare and power dynamics. Some African societies were able to acquire significant wealth through the slave trade, which they used to fund armies, build infrastructure, and patronize the arts. However, the trade also led to increased warfare and instability in some regions as African societies competed for control of trade routes and access to European African diaspora, a legacy of resilience. The transatlantic slave trade forcibly dispersed millions of Africans across the Americas. This forced migration had a profound impact on the demographics, cultures, and societies of the Americas. It also led to the creation of the African diaspora, a vibrant and diverse community with roots in Africa. Despite the horrors of enslavement, Africans retained their cultural traditions and identities. They developed new forms of music, dance, religion, and language that reflected their experiences and heritage. The African diaspora has made significant contributions to the arts, sciences, and politics of the Americas, enriching the cultural tapestry of the Western Hemisphere. Understanding the role of Africans in the transatlantic slave trade requires a nuanced and sensitive approach. It is essential to move beyond simplistic narratives that portray Africans as either helpless victims or willing collaborators. The historical reality is far more complex and multifaceted. By acknowledging the agency and motivations of all historical actors, we can gain a more complete understanding of this tragic chapter in human history. It is crucial to avoid imposing present-day moral judgments on the past. Instead, we should strive to understand the historical context in which these events unfolded. The transatlantic slave trade is a stark reminder of the capacity for human cruelty and exploitation. It is a history that must be remembered and understood so that we can learn from the mistakes of the past. By examining the complexities of African participation in the trade, we can gain a more nuanced and accurate understanding of this dark chapter in human history. The legacy of the slave trade continues to shape our world today. It is essential to acknowledge the lasting impact of this trade on Africa, the Americas, and the African diaspora. By engaging in open and honest dialogue about this difficult history, we can work towards a more just and equitable future.
After watching that, I don't think I will add too much. I will just put it this way. The benefits and the cost. Weigh it up and see if the transatlantic slavery or any form of slavery benefited the African or cost the African, regardless of the participation which they did, the benefits, and check the cost. You will see who benefited most, and who it cost the most. Now, the difference in the style of slavery or bondage is in the African system. After term served, like a prisoner here or someone who is incarcerated, after term served, the individuals or families would be able to return to their communities and keep everything intact, their names and their culture. In this type of slavery, which is the transatlantic slavery and the trans-Saharan slavery, the slave that was taken was perpetually a slave, and their descendants was also a slave. So the difference cannot be compared in the African slavery type of slavery and the transatlantic type of slavery. The transatlantic type of slavery is a very different type of slavery. I want to also ask you, because of my experience on watching the news and traveling to the continent and seeing wars and rumors of wars, if slavery was still legal, would you be participating today? And look around and see the wars and rumors of wars, and then put your answer in the comment box. Anyway, thank you for watching and have a great day.